I was just being me. And in being me, you both saw and heard what you felt was going to be something of value that should be produced. And you two were people who I needed to mirror me and what I wanted to realize all these years ago. And I think it's an interesting lesson and an interesting statement because when I think about the little girl who was 9 and had what was preemptively stated as vision boards, and I think about all the things that I want to realize and that I've, for better or worse, have allowed or have gone through these side roads, these journeys that now allow me to teach and share and incite and inspire, that makes for great podcasting. I have total gratitude towards these individuals who come into my life that I may not want ever in my life again, but that gave me the gifts that I can choose by making a decision to be vulnerable and share stories publicly that may help one, if not many others, and could be entertaining in the process. And I mean, from what I'm told, that has been in my past, what my strength has been. It's just allowing Felicia to be Felicia. Yeah. And going back to imposter syndrome, and what I think you two were also talking about is like, we come from these different places. So this is not like, oh, I just got my CPA, license and my degree and all these things, and now I'm going to go be a podcaster. What? Or I, 2 years ago, all of a sudden became an instant mother after being a professional, and now I'm going to be a podcaster. What? Or you have a 30-year degree plus career in being behind the scenes, and now you're going to, think that you're all that. And so now you're going to put yourself out there because you think you have that kind of value. I mean, I don't know. I like to think I have something to bring to the table that is of value.
You certainly do. You certainly do. And I'd love to pull apart what you just said a little bit, and talk about how we're all multifaceted individuals. It's just a matter of getting in tune with the things that you've loved all throughout your different experiences along the way. Those are the things that give you the hints to lead you in the direction of doing the things that are most aligned. And Katie and I don't think we ever really recognized that until more recently. We started the podcast and then reflected on, why did we start the podcast? We just were doing what was energetically feeling right. We didn't have any plan or anything oh, we've always been good speakers. Oh, we've always been good conversationalists. We've always been none of that at all. We were just kind of oh.
Excited to invite you to listen in on season 2, episode 1 of the Fifi Uncensored podcast 2022. This is such an exciting year to look forward to all the conversations that I'm going to be having with all my guests, starting with my co-producers, Katie LoVerde and Melissa Loiseau, that I am thrilled to have had come into my life, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't know how to push this button and get this podcast off the ground. For something that I've dreamed and believed and am achieving thanks to them is something that I want to set forth into 2022 to inspire others that dreaming, believing, and achieving is possible. Planting those seeds and watering all those wishes to come true is possible. And listening in on our conversation where you join us and sit around the campfire is something that I think you'll find extremely entertaining, really a joyful, insightful conversation, and the importance of how this wild, wild west of podcasts is taking off in this world, starting with the pandemic, with really how it just blew up and what's happening for so many people on this incredible new platform. So with that said, I look forward to you sitting down, leaning in, gathering those s'mores, cannolis, cup of tea, and joining us for a really fun conversation about why now, why podcasts, how we gather together, and what is possible. Much love. Look forward to hearing what you think. Bye for now. Enjoy the conversation. I love the fact that we're, first off, just connecting and that we're actually doing this, because I also thought it was just a great idea to sit down and have a conversation with the two of you, because you created your own podcast called Patent Pending, the podcast, and you're going to be entering into your third season for 2022. And it's a really random way that we met. And as I sit back and I realize this pattern that I'm seeing for myself, it's the way that we met was through social media, and the power in that for me personally, never in a million years would I have thought I'd be saying that. But I'm realizing as I pull back the curtain, the more people that I'm interviewing, I don't know the percentages, but some of them have definitely been through my connections and my reach outs through social media. And just something that, like I said, I would never have really explored or had the time to explore if it weren't for these last, 22 months. So the good fortune is that I got to meet you initially, Melissa, through another thread of sorts that I don't know that I should or can or cannot or should not mention, but another podcaster. And I happened to randomly ask you, of all craziness, how you got started, right?
Yeah, that's where this
and
all
through that we started communicating.
Yeah, it was a really exciting time just being part of a lot of different coaching communities and just communities in general virtually that was full of like-minded individuals. And Felicia and I stumbled upon one another in a group, and we just kind of hit it off from conversation one. It was like, hey, how did you get involved in podcasting? I'd love to learn more. And I was like, cool, let's hop on a call. And the rest is history. Here we are now.
The rest is history. What we thought was probably going to be a 10-minute conversation turned out to be a 2-hour conversation. Yeah. Then in turn made into another 2-hour conversation, including Katie. Mm-hmm. And out of that, we established launching my podcast.
Yeah.
Which I couldn't have done without the two of you.
Well,
so we're very thankful.
And running, and you're meant to be a podcaster. I knew it from the first second I spoke to you. I was like, she's got stories, she's got wisdom, she's got all the things, she's got the voice. This is great. We need to work together. I just knew, and here we are. And I think Katie kind of had that same sentiment first conversation.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about how the first time we all three of us connected. Well, I remember when Melissa had spoken to you, Felicia, and I spoke to her after, and she's like, we have to work with this woman. She's like, we have to figure out how to work with this woman. And I was like, all right, like, let's meet her. Let me see, let's talk, whatever. And we got on that call, and I just remember all three of us, like, at some point in the conversation was like, we need to work together. I don't know, like, what part of the universe sent us to one another, but somehow we are all three here for a very intentional reason. And it's been so fun and so cool to see what you've now created in this podcast, and we're honored to be on it now.
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, I mean, from that first, connection with Melissa, and then, Katie, you were like, it was like being the cream in the middle of those two yummy chocolate wafers. It was like, pinch me. It really was pinch me. And I mean, if nobody even hears my podcast, I'm still pinch me, because, like, for me personally, I know that there is a purpose to this that's greater than even realized in this moment, even while we're sitting here recording this. Like a year from now, I just want to be that visionary who has no idea how it's going to turn out, just knows it's going to turn out bigger than I can even imagine it to be. And because of the incredible way that we did connect. And yeah, there's a lot of people in the world, and you guys have this very special connection that you can speak on more than I, but that you've known each other since you were both little girls, and neighborhood, best friends, like the whole, like, again, you can speak on it way more than I can. But even to fit into that cog of being a threesome, being women, being you two having this like simpatico, probably like as if you're twins, kind of like that language, right? And I know you work with other people in different capacities, so, but that's not for me to know or to realize. Like, this is just all that matters to me, and I don't mean that selfishly. I mean that just in a focused sort of way. And I'm just like, how lucky can I be? I'm just, and I know that like we come from three very different backgrounds. And even to that extent, like what's vulnerable is I don't even know the full capacity, even though we've talked about highlights, like, you probably know a lot more about me than I really in a full capacity know about you guys. But I just knew that the timing was just really fortunate. And I knew that I could align with you two and grow together, and that I could be myself, and I didn't have to jump through hoops or dim my light, or that I could turn around just like I did yesterday and send you this recording of this tape that I did on imposter syndrome, which was one of the most just like push the button moment, where it was, I was really just looking at my animals, just being like, thank God, because like right now, that to me is the clearest thing. That to me is like the clearest thing in my life right now is my love for my animals. I mean, of course, for my husband and all, those things. But, and then it was like, that's when I started recording it. And then I was like, that's how the imposter syndrome came up. And this is like relative to the podcast. And us working together, like, come on, guys. I mean, I know you all said like, I make a great podcaster, but really? Yeah. But then the little girl inside me is like, excuse me, hello, yeah, not like, how should I say, not like spoiled, not in a negative way, like not like, some demanding artist that I've had the pleasure of being exposed to at different times in my career and learning lessons. Like, those are gifts. Those are gifts of like what I would want to be versus what I wouldn't want to be. I'm grateful for those gifts because it gives you perspective. It teaches you, it gives you like who you want to become, who you know yourself to have the power to be, and to just, along with, life as it happens, as how this happens, lots of things happen, and how do you stay on your path? And you guys, I feel, helped me kind of like realign on my train tracks.
I feel you.
Hopefully that story made sense, but that's what I was trying to like drive it down that track. Well, thanks to you guys.
Yeah, no, and we're so thrilled to just be working with you and others in that capacity, just being able to kind of be that accountability partner and that sense of guidance, like, hey, let's do this. You have this gift. Let's make this thing happen. Let's make something of it. And let's work together to just make it as great as it could be. That's what we're all about when it comes to this work. And, I don't think we knew how much we were going to fall in love with podcasting when we started ours. We were just like, okay, let's start this podcast.
and why? And why? That's my question. Why did you say all of a sudden, why podcasting?
Yeah, that's a fun story, and I can't wait to tell it.
I'm all ears.
So, I'll give you my perspective, and then Melissa can give you her side.
Great.
So during the pandemic, I full-time am a CPA. That's my full-time career. And I had just finished my master's degree. So I had just qualified to get my CPA license. I was like all like checking the boxes of the professional world, corporate worlds, and I was doing well at work and all of this stuff. And then they sent us home. They sent everybody home for the pandemic, and I was working from home, and I was sitting in a room by myself, not talking to anybody, not having any sort of connection other than like the occasional, Melissa, I'm losing my mind here. We got to go for a walk or something. I need to like get out of here. And the pandemic fatigue hit me hard. I was probably in the worst place mentally that I've ever been in my life. And I had no idea it was kind of like, I didn't even realize how much connection and like human interaction was like, I mean, it is for everyone, but like, I didn't realize how important it was for me until it was like completely gone. So on one of those days where I was like, I'm losing my mind here, we got to go, I need to get out of here. Melissa and I went out for a walk, and we just kind of talked about like the future and where we're going and what we want to do. And I was struggling with like, I just got my CPA license, and like, I don't even know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I don't know what's happening here. And I was just like questioning everything, every decision I'd ever made, like everything. And we went for this walk on my lunch break. And I had recently started listening to some podcasts here and there. And Melissa, on our walk that day, recommended a specific podcast to me. And I was like, all right, I'll check it out. So I go home and I start listening to this podcast. And all I could think was like, these are our conversations. This is literally what Melissa and I do all of the time when we get together. So why can't we do it? So I sent her a text message and I said, crazy thought. Do you want to start a podcast? Like, these are the conversations we already have all the time. And my phone rang, and it was her. And that was from then on. The rest is history.
She was just waiting for you, Katie, to say yes. Totally. Just waiting. Like, hello, I'm going to drop this little droplet. Is she going to stick out her tongue and like, yes, more please.
Yeah. Oh my God. So I was also losing my mind. We went on this walk, and so I was a stay-at-home mom for maybe, what was it then, Katie? Like 2 years at that point, maybe around there. So I had just completely scrapped my whole, what I thought was my identity for the past 2 years, and became this new person, this mother of all of these children. And, it was wild. I totally lost like my sense of belonging when it came to the work that I was doing. I really strongly identified with being a young professional. And through that process, through that transition of coming home to be a stay-at-home mom, I lost that connection. I didn't know any other moms. None of my friends were moms. I knew the one neighbor on the block who had twins who were around the same age, and she was also going nuts. So yeah, it was just like, it was a really hard time in life in general for like 2 years straight. And then the pandemic came, and that was the tipping point. I was like, well, now I can't even go to the park and try to find other moms. Now I really can't talk to anybody. Now I'm stuck here, and all of the children are home, and the husband, and everyone's here. They're all here, and I can't get out of here. And this is not fun. And I miss having conversations with people. I feel like I don't know how to speak to human beings anymore on an elevated level, except for when I go and talk to Katie, and I put myself in that environment again with a professional, a corporate professional. Yeah. And that was pretty much it. We always had these like really deep conversations, and I always have craved that throughout my life. And I noticed that there was like this huge gap when it came to mentorship for us as we moved through any transition in our life. We always leaned on each other and like, well, who else can we ask? Nobody? Or what can we research? Like, what can we do? How do we get through this? What might happen? Is there a philosophy teacher around that can teach us something? Like, what do we do? Somebody help us through everything. And out of those times of like struggle and not knowing who to turn to, we always leaned on each other, and we always came out on top. Like, knowing what to do, knowing how to make a major decision and feel good about it. I remember the first time I was up for a big raise and a big career transition. I literally was like on a train ride home commuting. I'm like, Katie, get to my house and bring some wine. Get there now. Like, this is what we got to do. And that was like professionally one of the biggest decisions I ever made. And who did I turn to? Katie. We sat on my son's nursery room floor for hours and hours talking about the ifs, the ands, the buts, the pros, the cons, all the things that could happen. And she gave me what I needed to hear that day. And we figured, if we could do that for each other, then why can't we do it for millions more people? And that's what this podcast was born out of. We knew that we had valuable words to share and valuable stories to tell, and that we'd been through some stuff and we had some like agency to mentor others. Honestly, if podcasts were a thing when we were like 18, we probably would have done it then if we felt like we had any like agency to do so, but we didn't. Back to that imposter syndrome thing. And now, we have a little life experience under our belt. We've been through some stuff. We're here and we can talk about some different things. So here we are.
Even when you have the life experience, you still have the imposter syndrome. I mean, I was sitting here thinking about all the things that you both said. And I was thinking about my journey, as you both know, but to just recap it for those who may not know, is that 5 years ago, I had the idea to have a podcast when podcasts were not a thing. And this has nothing to do with the fact that I'm in production, but I do love, ever since I was a little girl, as you both have heard the story, I always loved talk shows. I always loved that connection. I was always curious about people. I always wanted to know what made them tick. I loved being like leaning on the edge of my seat and listening in on this, like felt like I was at a good dinner party and I could have been 5 years old, for God's sake. I mean, it was like I was that kid. And I loved a good laugh and I loved funny and smart. And I just loved that engagement. And then ironically, I have a friend like you two who a different kind of connection, but there was always a stream of consciousness conversation that I thought at one point, God, if somebody listened to our conversation, I think they'd actually find it kind of entertaining. Like, because we hit all these different facets of conversations, like we barely take a breath. And we don't see each other all the time, but it's one of those things where there's just this kind of soul connection. And long story short, I proposed to him about we should do a podcast. And he was like, a podcast? What's a podcast? And this again is 5 years ago. And I was like, it's kind of like a radio show, but you get to control your own thing. And I'm really literally talking out my rear end because I really don't know the ins and outs of what it takes. I just figure you just record yourself and you just like put it out to the ether somewhere. I don't know what that meant. I just knew that there was some way to do it. We'd figure it out. So the first thing we did was we decided to sit down and just record ourselves having the stream of consciousness conversation. And all of a sudden we could no longer, A, have the stream of consciousness conversation, and B, could not stand the sound of our voices. And that was the beginning and the end of that podcast. The expiration date expired and we were out. And then life happened. And I had just come through 4 bouts of thyroid cancer. And now I was now going to go through 5 strokes with my mom, as well as working full time in the film and television career of mine as a makeup and hair artist. So like yourselves, have a whole nother career, a career that I've had as long as you both have been on this planet. And that's another thing I wanted to touch base with is like, you guys I could have grown up with. But the truth is we're not the same age. And that's also a cool plus and commentary on this engagement and our connection is I'm not less mature, and it's not that even you're more mature. It's just that we have an understanding and a relatableness and age or culture or location, because you're both on the East Coast, upbringing, financial, education, whatever. I mean, we're all 3 educated. We all 3 strive for greater. We all 3 are intelligent, funny, smart, curious, want more. Like those elements are the things that connect us. And I think the reason why, though I'm not going to put words in your mouth, no pun intended, why the arrows for you guys pointed in the direction of me having a podcast and hearing these two strangers, you two at one point, like 3.5, 4 months ago, who were strangers to me, hear you say, literally was like the road that pointed to, fruition of launch this now kind of thing. And it really was of the urgency of, I almost to the point of, like, as you said, being accountability podcasters and how you teach. And that will be, my next question about, not only why the name, but as producers of other people who are launching podcasts and you're teaching. But in the realm of, recognizing, wanting to put energy forth other people, not just yourselves, myself included, being fortunate enough to have aligned with the two of you, to have your love, your attention, your energy. Listen, there's not enough around of you, the two of you, to go around. Let's call it spade a spade. Like, life is busy. We all know it. Between kids, jobs, marriages, life that happens, parents, location, weather, all the things, different things that get included in that whole lasagna, so to speak. We're lucky that I think that you guys produce your stuff and that you produce my stuff and live life on top of it, along with your teaching. I'm just grateful that the time was right, that I aligned with you guys, you two women who recognized what it was, that I didn't have to prove or jump through hoops. I was just being myself. I was just being me. And in being me, you both saw and heard what you felt was going to be something of value that should be produced. And you two were people who I needed to mirror me and what I wanted to realize all these years ago. And I think it's an interesting lesson and an interesting statement, because when I think about the little girl who was 9 and had what was preemptively stated as vision boards, and I think about all the things that I want to realize and that I've, for better or worse, have allowed or have gone through these side roads, these journeys that now allow me to teach and share and incite and inspire, that makes for great podcasting. I have total gratitude towards these individuals who come into my life that I may not want ever in my life again, but that gave me the gifts that I can choose by making a decision to be vulnerable and share stories publicly that may help one, if not many others, and could be entertaining in the process. And I mean, from what I'm told, that has been in my past what my strength has been. It's just allowing Felicia to be Felicia. Yeah. And going back to imposter syndrome, and what I think you two were also talking about is, like, we come from these different places. So this is not like, oh, I just got my CPA, license and my degree and all these things, and now I'm going to go be a podcaster. What? Or I, 2 years ago, all of a sudden became an instant mother after being a professional, and now I'm going to be a podcaster. What? Or you have a 30-year degree plus career in being behind the scenes, and now you're gonna, think that you're all that, and so now you're gonna put yourself out there because you think you have that kind of value. I mean, I don't know. I like to think I have something to bring to the table that is of value.
You certainly do. You certainly do. And I'd love to pull apart what you just said a little bit. And talk about how we're all multifaceted individuals. It's just a matter of getting in tune with the things that you've loved all throughout your different experiences along the way. Those are the things that give you the hints to lead you in the direction of doing the things that are most aligned. And Katie and I don't think we ever really recognized that until more recently. We started the podcast and then reflected on why did we start the podcast. We just were doing what was energetically feeling right. Like we didn't have any plan or anything like, oh, we've always been good speakers. Oh, we've always been good conversationalists. We've always been none of that at all. We were just kind of like flowing right to it. And we had the time at the time to just kind of step back and be like, let's do something creative. Let's do something different. We're not creative people, but let's try to be creative people. And then we learned we were creative people, very, very creative people, in different ways than we defined creativity before. And there's just so much that comes of that, being in tune with what's going on and kind of reflecting on all of your experiences that you learn what the next right step might be for you. And if you take the wrong step or go a little ways down the wrong path, that's okay. You can always turn around and go back. You can always like branch off and go and do something else. So my question to everybody when they're like letting that imposter syndrome get in the way and kind of take over is, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? It fails. Well, so what? Then you move on to the next thing. And the worst thing that could happen, in my opinion, is you never tried. You look back 30, 40, 50 years from now, and you're like, damn, I wish I did that thing that was pulling on my heartstrings and really like something that I thought about daily and something that I felt I might be good at. And now I'll never know if I could have been good at it because I don't have the time to do it anymore. That would suck. That would be the worst. So why not just give it a try? Right?
I agree with you. And Katie, I think you're going to say something, so I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, so going off of what Melissa just said about there's no, like, at any point you could just change your mind. You could do something different. Like, that's where, and I think you hinted at asking this question earlier, but that's where our patent pending name came from, was that there's never like an end point. Like there's no finish line. There's no like, oh, you're done. You just got to stick to the plan now for the rest of your life. There's never a finish line ever in life. And so patent pending comes from the idea that we are always, the patent on ourselves, our lives is always pending, constantly. We're always changing, we're always growing, we're always going through new transformations and new things in life. New obstacles come up. We have new ideas. We figure out new things about ourselves. Like Melissa said with the creativity, we both soar up and down our entire lives. Well, probably not when we were like 5 or 7 or 8 or whatever. But at some point we decided we were no longer creative people. We were corporate, professionals, and creativity was just not something that we had because we weren't artists and I was a musician growing up. I played an instrument, but my identity was I am not creative. And it was such a lie that I think a lot of people have those beliefs about themselves. It's those limiting beliefs that we have to constantly, move ourselves through and realize, first of all, we have to take note of them and realize that we're having them, and then move past them or try something that challenges it. If you don't think you're creative, try doing something creative and you'll realize you really are. You just don't think of it in the same way.
Well, I think that, like yourselves, launching the podcast, the patent pending podcast during the pandemic, tried saying that 3 times, was also, like I feel many, was either a catalyst for people to start trying things or they got completely frozen and paralyzed. And like yourselves, it was, my motivation was to help others and to be successful and to keep going and to become wealthier than I'd ever become. I didn't know how. And, to stay connected to people. And interestingly enough, limited beliefs, imposter syndrome, all these conversations or cliche, little phraseology was something that was put in my face left and right more than ever during the pandemic. And maybe for other people too. I personally thought it was because the education I made a decision to become involved with. And interestingly enough, podcasts were something that kept coming up in a lot of this education as one of many platforms for people to see you, for you to be heard, for you to get your message across, for you to, have the platform, whether it's because you're selling something, selling yourself, or inspiring others through things that you've learned. And for me personally, the pandemic was one of these very big opportune moments to show up, fall forward, and to keep trying. And I know that in my career, even though it's always going as in a journey that you never know how it's going to mold and where it's going to go, at the same time, I do feel that there have been moments where maybe it's in my own brain, or maybe I do really feel this to be true in my community of that world, no disregarding it. Great opportunities to be gifted this realization is that, doing those things uncomfortably, stepping out of that comfort zone, that which you've known, and wanting to be multifaceted and being that onion is scary, does take belief, does take making a decision or decisions, does take showing up, being consistent, no different than the career you actually assigned yourself to become, getting a master's of CPA, or being in the business world as you were, Melissa, or me committing to being a filmmaker and going behind the scenes, whether those were choices that now we realize we wish we had or hadn't made, or we're happy we made them, but we want more. And for myself, being willing to stretch, as I've always loved doing, but in this kind of a public kind of format. And public is like, maybe nobody knows, maybe nobody cares, maybe nobody pays attention, maybe it's just like free falling or a bear in the woods, who do you hear do what? I mean, I don't know, but to do this and to reflect a year and a half ago or 22 months ago, and to be here, as much as even yesterday I was like, who do I think I am? That I can barely get off the couch, and yet I've got to produce a podcast, and I'm exhausted, and I should be promoting my athleisure business. For God's sake, it's the holiday season. Just text people this beautiful stuff, and and pursue your career for the next season. And all these, and my brain's just like, do something for fuck's sake. Just do something. Make a decision. Stop just sitting here, which is how it caused me to, record this thing that I would never 22 months ago have done. I would never have taken a selfie. I would have never recorded myself. I would not have listened to my voice. I now don't even think about listening to my voice. I'm happy to listen to the recordings that I've had with these guests who've taken time with me for 2 hours that we never knew was going to become 2-hour formats, or two-parters, or streaming, so to speak, as I like referring to it sometimes, or whatever. It's become like none of that matters anymore, because again, I think it's just breaking down my own internal barriers, my not worrying about external barriers, or doing better to worry less about external barriers, because like all of us, as little girls, consciously or not, we had dreams. And whether it was playing a musical instrument, or drawing perfect perspective, or dancing in a recital, or collectively doing it all, to become that pure soul that we are meant to be, and that we keep getting sidelined because life happens, is really blissful to be with two other souls who hear and understand that desire to there's more to this dance than we've been experiencing. Whether you're in your 20s or 30s, or you're now in your whatever age that was that I am. Wise age. wise crack age. Put on a lot of oil. That's all we got to say. But but in all truth, I think that being willing, having the willingness to just go for it, and like you said, Melissa, what's the worst thing that can happen? You change. I literally had this conversation last night with somebody I've known for years, who's been an artist, a makeup artist, who also had been a teacher, went off to teach. I'm not going to mention names, but so should she ever hear this, I want her to know I'm reflecting on this for a reason, as we discussed. And I was like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen if you decided to not do it, even though you've only been doing it a short time? So you did it. Or maybe it's just the environment, or maybe it's like and I made her kind of just reflect and go, what's the worst thing that can happen because you went for it? Okay, but you do need to make a plan. I don't know how your plan's going to turn out. You don't know how your plan's going to turn out. But make a decision, make a plan, try to get a vision on it, and fucking go for it. Go for it. Keep pushing those buttons to go for it. Because this may not be right because of X, Y, and Z right now, but maybe it's meant to turn into something that you don't know. Because you really went out in left field and did something like, a lot of unfamiliar territory. It wasn't just unfamiliar, it was really unfamiliar. So it's like taking an extreme pendulum swing. And I think those are the things that we also have to be aware of, is that for some of us, these are big, huge pendulum swings, and we have no idea where they're going to balance back to. But I love that we have each other to, you've been doing it longer than I, but I still feel like there's an ability to be able to connect in a way that supports and raises each other up. And that is the last thing I want to say in this moment, is you do have to have community that does support. There's going to be a lot of naysayers and a lot of people you're going to make feel uncomfortable while you're growing, because if they're not growing, they don't like seeing other people grow. And it's nothing disregarding them as human beings and where they're at. It has to be with, I've heard the most successful people on the planet say this very thing. Don't expect the people that you came up with, or who are your family or whatever, to get what you're doing or get your passion or support you at all. Like, not a fingernail sliver. Like, may never ever listen to your podcast past, may never ever watch anything you've done, may never ever look at a budget spreadsheet, may never ever care that you just jumped into being a mother. Like, may never ever ever about any of that stuff. You just have to know that doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'll never forget when there was one day when Melissa and I had we were probably about 3 or 4 months into the podcast, and we were putting out these quotes on Instagram of whether it was things that we said, quotes that we liked from other people, and things like that. And we were posting those on Instagram and Facebook. And my grandfather is on Facebook, and he would see them, and I would see his like come in every once in a while. I'll never forget the day I was at his house, and he looks at me and he goes, I see like those things that you post on Facebook. I don't get it. I was like, it's okay, Grandpa. You don't have to. It's not for you. It's like at the end of the day, there's certain people in our life. I love my grandfather dearly.
Yeah.
And there are people in our lives who we may love to pieces who don't necessarily get what we're doing. And that's fine. All that matters is that we're happy doing what we're doing. And if they truly love us and we're happy, then they're going to be happy that we're happy. They may never directly support us in what we're doing. He may never, like you said, listen to the podcast or understand a single thing that he sees on Facebook that we post. But that doesn't mean that we're doing anything wrong. It just means that, my grandfather isn't our audience. isn't the person that we're talking to. He may not need what we're saying, it's like they're the people that need to hear what you have to say are going to, that's not to say you don't have to put the work in to share your stuff and all of that. That's an important piece of it. But the people that are meant to hear what you have to say are going to find you. If you put it out there and you share it with the world, you have to do that in a big enough capacity to where they can find you, but they will find you. And just know that when you find people along the way who are not interested or don't like it or give you a negative review or say something, about how you don't have any right to be doing what you're doing, or you don't have the right perspective to be saying what you're saying or whatever, just know that it's not your person. It's not your audience.
It's very interesting. Melissa, I want to give you an opportunity to speak on that before I say something to you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I would say, the same thing. I was just going to say, I agree completely. And I've had those experiences too, where like I have family members who I know listen to the podcast and they'll comment and say, oh, it was so good. Where did it go? I stopped seeing the post. I'm like, I don't know why you stopped seeing the post. It's still there every week, like, I don't know. But it's funny when like you start doing something and then people put all of these perspectives into what you're doing about like what they think it should be, what they think it should become. And it's like, okay, thank you. Like valuable feedback, appreciated. However, I think we create the best content, the best stuff when we're really leaning into what we feel most called to discuss, most called to put out there into the world. It's really a soulful thing. When you're creating content that's going to spark somebody's interest and guide them in one direction or another, or just make them feel inspired about something, it's really important for that to be coming from a really positive energy field within you. And if you're coming at your work as a content creator in podcasting or otherwise from a place of, oh, I just need to get it out there, I just need to push it, I just need to go with that speed and that like anxiety behind it, that's going to come across in your work. We do this. We became podcasters because it's our soul calling to speak to people in this way, to have these conversations and to make somebody think something a little bit differently or shift their perspective or boost their positivity or be that kick in the ass that they need of like, what the hell are you doing? How can I help you? How do we move past this? What community support do you need to move on to the next thing that you're seeking out in the world? Really connecting with other seekers who are wanting more and just needing the community to support them in finding more. That's what we set out to do with this. And if people don't like it, that's fine. As Katie said, it's not for you. And that comes up in every single area of work. There's always going to be somebody to say something negative. And for every person that has something negative to say, there's going to be 10 more people that have something positive to say. So who gives a shit? That's what I have to say,
No, true. It's absolutely true. And it's interesting as I reflect listening to both of you, my greatest cheerleader was my mom. And my mom, as you both know, who you both would have loved, and she would have loved the two of you, really believed in my writing and really believed in me doing other things as well as what I was already accomplished in. And she just always encouraged that. And during the transition of the country shutting down in March 2020, I was writing quite a bit. And I had written quite a bit, but people didn't know I, would sit down and write chunks of stuff. And then it was about exposing that or sharing that. And social media was that first kind of soiree. And I was thinking about it just within like the last 24 hours. I mean, my mom was a huge social media person, like way before her daughter was, I'm sure my mom knew how to do selfies and upload things long before I did. And, my mom, God love her, is probably really cheering on the fact that we're doing this. Like I connected with two amazing women who are encouraging my creativity, who's, forcing me to write and engage and do the things that are scary and uncomfortable, but that successfully are making, that because, and I believe in accountability. I'm the first one that will say I believe in accountability. I might not always hold to like eating the right things and working out the way I should, but I do like accountability. and I'm proud to say that, by the time this airs, this will most likely be the 15th episode in like less than 4 months that will have been produced. And my mom would have actually loved listening to this, and my mom would have loved engaging with this, and she would have been the audience. And I think she would have been a great cheerleader for that audience to listen. And because at 87, that's what she would have been at this point, would be that person who was just like, the head, like leading women's movements and, women having their power and doing all that stuff. And yet, just in her own way would have loved to have accomplished these things. So I definitely think that going back to, doing things that you don't want to regret that you didn't do, I'd still like to be able to wear a string up my tush. So like, that's still a goal. That's part of the podcast goal, not in privacy. I don't mean to be raw about that and unladylike about that, but we're just putting out goals. I'd still also like to play my cello again and, do more art again. So let's conclude that in that conversation, as I'm sure the two of you have lists of things too. So obviously we know what led to this moment of you guys becoming podcasters. So in regards to your life purpose, like when you reflect on life purpose, like what you remembered as little girls and where you're at now, because are you both in your 20s?
Yes.
Yeah. I could have had, I think, both of you. Could I have had both of you? Not certain. Do we want to reveal that? Yeah, I probably could have at this point. I could have had them.
So
what's that?
I said we're 27.
Yes, I could have had you both. Yes, I could have had you both. I am very quick with math. Yes, I could have had you both.
And we're born apart, a week apart exactly. I think
when's your birthday?
I'm May 19th and she's May 12th.
So you're Taurians.
Yes.
My little Earth girls.
That's right.
Love it.
All the time, I think that's why we're made the other halves of each other's brains when it comes to everything. We're so close in birth and just in location and upbringing and all of that stuff. I really do feel that way, and that's why we're able to do business the way that we do. It's pretty awesome. I love it.
And so from a life purpose perspective, did you see as little girls? Like, did you recognize when you were playing together, when you first met and as your relationship was developing, could you see that your life purpose could lead you to doing not this, but just wanting to be together, do things together, or as individuals and together? Like, where do you come on with that?
So what I always say is like, it's so, I kind of equate it to like a soulmate. And I think I've heard you say this on your podcast before, and how it doesn't have to be like a romantic relationship, a significant other, or anything like that. I truly believe, I don't think that you have one necessarily either, but I truly believe that Melissa and I are soulmates for sure. And I think that we've known that since we were children.
Yeah, agreed.
We just have this 100% confidence that we could tell each other anything, and neither one of us would ever judge the other or be like, you're crazy, or like discourage each other from anything at all. Like, we just 100% like have each other's backs. I could tell her like the most outer space thing in the entire world, and she'd be like, yeah, okay, how do we do that? Let's do it.
I love it so much. That's my favorite part of our relationship, is that like you never make me feel like a crazy person.
Hey, I'm gonna put my hand up in that whole thing, and the two of you are that for me. like 100%. Like the fact that you have 27 years together and I've got like 4 months, and I feel that way. It's just a compliment to the two of you that I feel that way, because that, for me to feel that way, is like a huge, huge statement, because I have no problem being myself. It's just whether or not it's found acceptable in different environments. And I'm not like off the wall. Like I'm, I'm deep, I'm passionate, I'm intense. I tend to say what's on my mind. So I'm a straight shooter unless I feel like I need to turtle. Yeah. And you guys never make me feel anything but totally safe, totally able to be fully self-expressed. Yesterday was the perfect example of, I sent you the text of something I recorded, didn't put it out there, just because I sometimes like to pause, not because I'm incapable of making my own decisions. On the contrary, both of you know that. It's just like, let me just check myself at the door before I do this, because I just want to make sure that, like, hey, you still gotta like, it's not about a reputation. It's just about, because what reputation? I mean, for heaven's sakes, like, what reputation? It's just, I'm showing up being me. I'm not harming anybody. Yeah. And I think that that's the thing. None of us are harming anybody. Mm-hmm. We're doing stuff that makes us feel good, like you both have said, and what resonates. And that there's trust and respect. And look, trust and respect is earned, but and we talked about this very early on in our meetings. Like, trust and respect is earned, but there was something about the two of you that I felt that I could jump off the edge, which I have no desire to do, and that I would be safe, and that you wouldn't allow me to fall, even if I'm capable of getting back up myself, which I've proven more times than necessary. But in a way that was like, not a, like, it wasn't like, oh, let's go watch her fall. No, it was like, let's go watch her fly. Let's go help her fly. And I feel like the same way in turn. Like, I mean, we said this also early on, like, how do we make this happen? Is this something that the three of us are supposed to be doing together? Like, I don't want to impose on you guys what you already have, or what we're trying to figure out with me. But here's a perfect example, sitting here just doing this with you. And this won't launch until January 2022, but like, how much I love this. I just love being here with the two of you. And speaking of connection, if I just may add, the pandemic really has challenged that. I mean, I love throwing a good party. I can't throw a good party now. We're even questioning, even though this will have happened, from the time it aired, but because of what's going on in our world right now, it's questionable what we can and should do in making good decisions, smart decisions that may limit your interaction with people. So doing this is so imperative and so in need of having a good, healthy kind of like space to just check out or check in and have that community.
Yeah. And I think going back to your question of life's purpose, for me, a big part of that, and it's so nice to hear your words and how you feel about us, and that warms our hearts, to know that we are that for you. That for me that's it. That is life's purpose for me. Like, allow people to be themselves, encourage people to be themselves, and like, not hold back, not be afraid to put themselves out there, and build community of people who uplift each other and encourage each other. And like, there's no point in putting anybody down ever. There really isn't. Like, who wins? Nobody wins in that scenario. So just making as much impact as I can on increasing positivity and uplifting each other, and especially women, because we have a reputation of knocking each other down and being catty and all of that, and I've never had any room for that. I don't have time for it. It's like, it just doesn't I never understood it, because what does pushing me down get for you, right? And in some scenarios, there is a, you know, instant gratification of putting someone down. Like there might be a scenario where it's you or the other person, and if you throw them under the bus, you get the benefit. But in the long run, it doesn't help anybody, because you can't do that your entire life. It's not going to really get you anywhere. So yeah, that's it for me, honestly, is just cultivating that mentality and those safe spaces to be able to uplift each other and share those crazy ideas and have big dreams.
Yeah. That my sentiment's kind of the same around this. And I also feel very strongly this need to unveil the good in others that sometimes they're unwilling to reveal about themselves. It's like I feel like I have this gift to just see opportunity in people that maybe they're kind of suppressing within themselves. And that's where like my coaching comes in. I've always noticed that I've had that ability since I was young, like on the playground, like, oh, I don't know how to build a sandcastle. Oh, well, you can learn how to build a sandcastle. Like I've always just been that person, you know. And to bring it all the way back to like childhood, Katie and I were similar in some ways, but very opposite in others. And we're still that way today. Like Katie was like, I'm going to be a Power Ranger every Halloween. And Melissa was like, I'm going to be a witch who is very mysterious. And like, you know, like all these like little random things. And like, I don't know, we both played the flute. Like we both were into music. We both decided to run down business paths with our lives. We both had like these big aspirations as young adults to really build these lives that were different than our upbringings. And all of that has kind of molded us into recognizing our purpose in different ways through each season of our lives, I think. You know, when we were young, it was like, no, I don't want to say being popular. I want to say being like leaders in our communities and wanting people to really like show up with us and bring along people with us and be part of the clubs that we liked and the things that we wanted to do. And as we got older, it turned more into like really finding success in our own endeavors and then showing other people how to do that with like everything we ever did. It's like, oh, well, I did this thing. Like, let me help you. Let me see how this can translate into your life. And for me, that came up a lot in my career in recruitment. I was in corporate staffing and I was recognizing that I loved interviewing people and coaching them through their career changes. I loved that part. I always loved talking about like philosophical life things with people. And that wasn't the focus of a career in recruitment in Manhattan. It just wasn't. It was treat people like a number and get the job filled and move on to the next thing. Let's go. And I just was like, no, not morally aligned. Nope, not feeling this. I don't like it. I want to actually have like a strong professional relationship with these people and really guide them through life and their career decisions and hold on to those relationships and nurture them. And then now becoming a podcaster, I've brought in that piece of my prior career into this new life, professionally being able to just lead in that way and being able to interview. That's the part that I love. So again, finding parts of your purpose through every single season is really my goal here overall in life. And piecing all of those parts together to create the puzzle of what your career, what your lifestyle, what your friendships, relationships, what all of it is. Because at the end of the day, like, I don't want anything in my life that I hate. Anything in my life that's draining my energy, like, no, thank you. I don't want any part of that. Anything that's negative, anything that I don't want to be doing, whether that's a task in my business or activity in my day-to-day life, like, I got to find a way to eliminate it, because I'm just trying to live the most free life I possibly can. And to me, freedom means being able to show up and do whatever the heck you want to do every day of your life and actually enjoy it and love it and be financially rewarded for it. That's it. It's very simple. And people will look at that or hear that and be like, are you nuts? Like, what a dreamer. That's crazy. Are you crazy, girl? Like, that doesn't exist. But my challenge to that is really like, it doesn't exist in your universe because you're not bringing that into your perspective. When you seek out the evidence of what you think is possible for yourself in the world, and then you find it, you can take it 10 times further when you learn how to cultivate vision. And I think that's my greatest like learning curve thing that I've tackled, is being able to overcome that. Okay, is this possible? Is it not? Am I crazy? No, I'm not crazy. I just need to find it. And then dive into it, and then find like one other person like Katie to tell me like, yeah, you're not nuts. And that's it. Helping others to do that, really.
Well, and along the lines of both of your intentions, it's like when, again, I think about the two of you reflecting, I think about one, I was always a leader. Though it may be hard to believe, I was like a shy leader, and and was shy on one hand and loud and forceful or lioness on another hand. I was that little girl that probably somewhere between the ages 7 and 9 was putting together potlucks. I mean, come on. Seriously, gathering girls together to have potlucks at my parents' house, like nobody was doing that. And yet it was successful, and I love bringing people together, and I love breaking bread and having a good time and doing that thing, and I also whether I was a class president or whatever, it wasn't about, yeah, I like being popular, and yes, I like being successful, and yes, I like being good at anything I put my mind to, and I wanted to lead accordingly. And when I was a camp counselor, how Camp Fifi Uncensored came about was I was that pure person who, one, did not want to have any fear the way I had as a little girl. That did limit me. So I knew as a camp counselor, once I was no longer a camper, that given the opportunity, I wanted to make people fearless. I wanted to make young girls fearless. And I wanted them to know that there wasn't anything that they couldn't say, discuss, talk about, that I didn't understand, or that I couldn't be the ear for, or that I couldn't help them solve, or just feel safe, and that they could be the best version of themselves, and we could do it collectively as a family, as a community, even if we didn't run from the same bloodlines. And that allowed me also creatively to be my purest self, my most joyous self, my just fullest self. And I know as life then progressed, it's interesting because I ended up initially on roads that were creative, struggling fiscally, but still were creative, and trying to formulate that thing to become whoever it was that I was here to become. And then fortunately or unfortunately aligned with people who didn't make me feel good. And it's taken many examples and many years, and not because one needs to learn the lesson so many different times, but they show up in so many different ways. And you can't always know that that's going to show up. But you can also know when you're done having it show up, or that you're like, thank you, but no thank you. Like, no, I don't want to do this kind of thing anymore. And I can let it go in a way that, not wishing you anything but great things, but this no longer serves me, and it never served me, and girlfriend's got to like drive this train again to the mountaintop the way she always imagined, and really just find her tribe. And I mean, if anything, I hope that the intention is to show that no matter how many times I've fallen down, or I'm lucky to be here, or I'm lucky to have my voice, or I'm lucky to be alive, that wanting to find your tribe and doing whatever it takes to get to that place, and knowing that it's not going to just show up and it's just going to be delivered and it's just going to be wrapped in a bow. Life is not that way. And I have plenty of people who can, will look at me. I mean, Jesus God, I might as well be a 5'10" buxom, gorgeous, blonde who can do the runways and what. Like, there are times people look at me and just think like I've got it all going on. And I'm thinking, who are you talking about right now? Because I don't know who this person is. Well, I'd love to be introduced to her. And with that said, it's like, and yet there's there's a core of me who very sheepishly will say, no, I mean, I know she's in there. I know she's in there. Mm-hmm. Where I'm at today is, it's like, why I'm so grateful for the timing of us aligning is the fact that I am getting to use my voice. I am getting to reconnect with my purpose. I am getting to raise people up the way I'm really good at it. I don't have to align with people that I don't resonate with, not in these realms. And the less I have to do it in other realms, even better, if not at all. Because I do want to do powerful things on this planet. And I do want to inspire lots and lots of people beyond my imagination. And I want to travel the world doing that. And if this podcast turns into something that we've all talked about the possibilities of, so be it. Let her loose. Because, you know, I might be like trying to figure it out in my first 13, 14, 15 episodes, but I'll still keep showing up, figuring it out. And I think that life is about just being willing to show up and do that with intention, and the rest will get figured out. So speaking of, you know, intention and message and why now, like combined, you know, why now? What is your message? What do you want to get across to people by doing this format, by using this platform?
Well, I think that it's safe to say that we really seek to allow all of our listeners to know that they are supported and they can find support whatever it is that they're trying to tackle in their lives in some way, shape, or form. That's the common thread. We talk a lot about transformation. We talk a lot about leadership. We talk a lot about, involving yourself in the right environments and just getting yourself in the right spaces to do what you seek to do with your life. But it's really about community. It's really about knowing that what you want to achieve is possible and that there's no dream too big. And if you can see it, that it's made for you and it's your job, it's your responsibility to show up for it, because it's not going to just, like you said before, be wrapped in a bow and placed in your lap. And I think once we let go of that idea that someone's coming to save us and something's being given to us and that it's just going to happen, that's when we unlock our power to be able to actually achieve. And until you're ready and willing to like show up for that and actually say like, okay, I need to take responsibility for my own life if I want to see these outcomes and create this vision, then it's not going to happen. Maybe like there will be some materialistic things that'll be gifted to you or come your way, or maybe you'll show up in some right places. But really, if you're not choosing to show up and take responsibility for those things, then what are you choosing? You're choosing the opposite. And we just really want everybody to understand that everything we do in life, everything we expose ourselves to needs to be a conscious choice. We need to be awake through it all. We need to be choosing the paths that feel most aligned for us for whatever reason it may be, even if it doesn't align in some ways. If you know it's a means to an end for a little while because it's going to lead you on a path to do this, that, or the other thing, fine. Just being conscious about the choices that you make and knowing that there's community around you to support you. You just got to seek it out. And if it's not there and you really, really can't find it and you don't believe me on that, then you can create it. You can create it for yourself. It's just a matter of choosing to. So, yeah.
Well, and I think also just taking responsibility for where you're going, where you've gotten to, first of all, no matter where that is, what step along the way and along your journey you're at right now, you've done a lot to get yourself there. Wherever you think that is, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, I would argue that no matter where you are at is a good thing, and you've done a lot of good for yourself to get there. But knowing that, like, if you are looking at somebody and saying they're so lucky, right? Like you're just so lucky. Everything worked out for you. It didn't. I don't care who you're looking at. I don't care what celebrity or like CEO or whatever you're looking at. I promise you, they worked their ass off to get to where they are. And that may look different. Working your ass off for different people in different careers and different things looks different. But, you know, I've been the person that people looked at and said, oh, you're lucky you got that, or you're lucky you got that job, or you're lucky that you, and for me, it was like, it was almost like a slur to me of like, what do you mean I'm lucky? I did this. Like, I put myself here because I worked really, really hard to get where I am. And if you're someone who's looking at people and thinking, oh, they're so lucky, maybe it's that you need to decide where you're going. And you're just thinking, like, if that's where you want to be and you think that person's really lucky for where they are, figure out how they got there. And, like, do it. Take a step in that direction. Like, it's totally possible. And that just goes back to the idea that, like, no matter what your dream is, like, there's no dream too big. You can have whatever it is that you see for yourself. It just takes being consistent, being, like, intentional about all of your actions along the way, and making sure that you're checking in and saying, like, am I doing something today that's going to get me where I want to be 10 years from now? And not looking at if you are looking at somebody thinking they're lucky, use them as a resource. Like, reach out to them and say, how did you do this? I want to do it too. And that's something that we've learned to do along our podcasting journey, our business journey, entrepreneurship, and all of the career and everything. Is like, if you see somebody in a position that you want to be in, figure out how they got there and do it for yourself, because we're all capable.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, both of you. The theme here, I think, is responsibility, taking responsibility for oneself, because nobody is, at the end of the day, nobody's here to wipe your tush. You know, you got to grow up and you got to make choices. Whatever those choices are, they're fine, as long as, you know, again, it's serving your dreams. And I know that a lot of people, you know, don't feel that they can dream big, but that's not true. The truth is you need to dream bigger than you can imagine, because otherwise you'll fall short of it. You know, it could be literally moving down the street. It could be moving across town. It could be, you know, studying or pulling up a YouTube video. It could be picking up the phone or texting somebody or going to a lecture or becoming a part of a community. Whatever it is that resonates with you to move the needle forward, and then just consistently taking those actions repeatedly. I mean, again, I've had people reach out and go, you know, can you speak to, you know, so-and-so about your career? Of course I can speak to so-and-so about my career. But you're also talking about a 35 plus year career. 35 years, of which the first 15, I was like rubbing 2 sticks together. Is your family member ready to do that? I'm not saying that's going to be their journey. I'm just saying, are they ready to do that post-college, post all the responsibilities of paying back loans and all the things that nobody else is going to come along and pay?
Mm-hmm.
That may not be their scenario. That was my scenario. I don't even know how the hell I got here. Half the time, I do not know how I was not out on the street, how I did not ever end up evicted, you know, how, like, not because I wasn't responsible. I was overwhelmed with so much responsibility that to meet the responsibilities was beyond. But somehow, little by little, I just kept showing up and figuring it out, you know. And I mean, we can all look at wherever we live or whatever, and people can, you know, go, oh, well, you have, or do you have any idea how hard one works to create this? This isn't about material goods. But at the same time, it's like, when I think about the people I studied with this year alone, who are some of the biggest, most affluent people in the world of business in all different facets. Each and every one having their own planes, their own companies, their own world, everything at their feet, but they came from nothing, and they all created magnificent careers. Not any one of them are under the age of 50, by the way. They're more like in their 60s and 70s. That's a lot of years of pulling weeds and tilling the soil and replanting the seeds and just falling on your face and figuring it out and getting back up and doing it again. And our society, you know, has this love for youth, and youth is delicious. But youth does not come unless your soul is so old and so wise and so on that path. For the most part, it does take years of evolution. It does take years of patterning. It does take years of, and you two just happen to be fortunate, in my humble opinion, that you have each other, that mirror each other in a way that you have each other to work off of. You know, that safety net that a lot of people at 27 do not have in a very safe zone, that can actually continue to flower and fill this field of wild flowers that are abundant and floral and, you know, just keep growing and growing and expanding. That doesn't mean that a lot of people don't, but to have a neutral sense of respect and creation and can co-create and can raise each other up, like that to me would be like what people should be seeking. Responsibly take action for yourself and your actions and your reactions, and be willing to do the work. Be willing to know that every action has a reaction. It's the old rock in the water effect. Every time you throw the rock in, there's going to be ripple effects, good, bad, or otherwise, positive and negative. And it just have to be ready and responsible to be accountable for those things, whatever those things are that you put out there. You got to clean up your own messes, and you got to, you know, toot your own horn all at the same time, and know when and when not to, and how to do it gracefully. And, you know, I think that, you know, the intentions, the message, the why now, I think that we're all, listen, at 27, could I have done a podcast? I'd like to think I could, but that's not what I was doing. You know, I was just really starting my career as an independent contractor, as a freelance artist, and building my portfolio and building my network of connections, and just struggling to like just get past that point. And nobody was, again, just saying, hey, here's your golden ticket. There was no golden ticket. And I think that for myself, the reason why I can come to this table and like yourselves, because I think you're more, not that I was less mature, I just think that you're more formulated by the sense of structure and responsibilities that you had. Mine were different. I had different kind of responsibilities. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot.
I think at the end of the day, it's not about how old you are or were when anything does or doesn't happen.
No.
I think at the end of the day, it's at what point are you willing to commit yourself to doing the work to accomplish the thing that you're putting on your plate right now. So going back to your reference of, can you talk to my, you know, so-and-so about your career? Like you said, it's not about, yeah, I could talk to them, but like, are they willing to do the work? And if they do the work, it could happen in 2 weeks for them. They could fly through the ranks and something crazy happens, you know, and that's where like, I don't like to call it luck, but it's like, if you never put yourself out there and you don't do the work, you're 100% guaranteed not to get that opportunity. If you put yourself out there and you really put in the work, that opportunity could present itself in 2 weeks, or it could present itself in 50 years. You don't know, but the point is you have to put the work in. Otherwise, you never get that opportunity. Because, like we said, nothing's going to get handed to you on a silver platter. It's not, no one's saving you, no one's coming, you know, you have to do the work. You have to be willing to put in the work and commit yourself to it. And to your point of, could you do this at 27? If you decided at 27 that you were going to be willing to put in the work to have a podcast and create it and be committed to it and be consistent with it, then yeah, you 100% could have. But in that moment in time, you weren't thinking about that. You were committed to your career and you were committed to doing the work for that. And so that is what happened for you. And so really just about making the decision to do whatever it is that you're deciding to put on your plate and do it consistently and put in the work and put in the effort and put the passion and the energy behind it, and forget about the timeline. Forget about, is it going to be a month, a year, 10 years, 40 years from now? It's not about that. It's about the process. It's about loving what you're doing every step of the way, whether or not you're getting the, recognition or, the wealth that could possibly come from it down the road. Because if you don't put in that effort, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, I think just responsibility in general and timeline and what have you. I think like any of us, either one of us, as little girls, we could have, oh, we love this. It could be dressing up in tutus and putting on pink tights, or it could be, putting our lips to a metal formulated piece of sculpture that, puts out beautiful notes. And, how do you take all those pure passions and stay responsible to yourself and your soul while you live your life and do it with as much realizing that sometimes you have no control over anything. As a child, you have less control. As a young adult, you're learning about control. And as a full-grown adult, it's your control now. You're either going to take it, you're going to drive this car, or you're not.
Yeah.
And I think some people just don't want to grow up.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of this all comes back to toleration and what we're willing to tolerate throughout our lives. Like, if you want to complain about something, you have to recognize before you start complaining about it that you're choosing to tolerate that. And whatever you choose to tolerate is what is like potentially preventing you from pursuing the work that would align you with the thing you actually want, that would align you with the things that you actually seek to be doing in the life and the vision that you actually are recognizing you want to create, but you're just blocked from it because you're tolerating something that's the opposite. And when we choose to tolerate something that's the opposite, then essentially we're choosing to not follow our dreams. Right? Yeah. So I think once we realize that, that's when the responsibility factor comes in, and it's like, oh, wait a second. I chose this. I'm continuing to choose this. How do I stop choosing this? Right. And that's when you start doing the work. But it first takes that like inner recognition of like taking responsibility for the fact that you tolerated XYZ for so long. And now you want to choose something different. And that's okay. Like, it's not something to beat yourself up about, because beating yourself up about it is just going to continue to put you down that path of choosing the opposite of what you wanted to be choosing. And just waking up every day and realizing that the work we do is not all, I can't say all, but mostly really by choice. And it's created by the lives that we choose for ourselves. Everything in life is a choice. For most of us here in the highly developed modern world, but some people aren't so fortunate to have as many choices as you. So when you're thinking, oh, I'm so stuck, I'm in like this horrible place, I can't create that life, I can't create that vision, I challenge you to, think back to all the people that are existing on this beautiful planet Earth right now that don't have as many choices that you have to access the things, the resources, the lifestyles, all of the things that are potentially right at your fingertips. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably have a smartphone or some sort of device in your hands. There is some sort of opportunity right there within your grasp to do something a little different, to connect in a new way, to expose yourself to something else. Maybe you don't have all the choices right now that you want to have, but you get to create opportunity for yourself to make new choices as life goes on. And every single day is a new day to do something different. So why not? Why not choose to do it different?
Agreed. And, you know, I think it comes also down to the willingness to be self-motivated and want to do something different, and doing something different, taking responsibility, and whatever that unknown path is, meaning you don't have experience, you don't know anybody with experience, but the willingness to, whether we call it reverse engineer or just put the puzzle pieces together, like really don't go into overwhelm, just take, like, it all goes back to like being a baby. A baby never did a marathon the first day out the womb. The baby doesn't even do anything, for God's sake. The baby just needs to be nurtured and loved and clean and fed and sleep and grow and process this whole new world. And if we took it down to very basic elements and realized just the process it takes to be a fully developed human being. And yeah, you could speed it up, but the point is it's still going to be a process.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the truth is you can speed up over here, but you may miss these details over there. So you may have to come back to like pick up on those details in order to get the full picture, to like go forth and do it in the most excellent of ways. So, you know, a baby has to crawl before it walks, and it has to walk before it can, you know, start to actually take a stride of steps. Mm-hmm. That's why you have, you know, a tricycle with wheels to like keep it upright, because even when you're trying to do the two wheels, you're doing a lot of falling down before you actually get that thing off and running safely. So it's the same thing in life, that we have to be more gentle on ourselves, and we have to, like, I've always said, I'm not in competition with other people, I'm in competition with myself. Uh-huh. Yeah. And the competition is to show up every day and do something a little bit better. There's certain things that don't even get addressed. There's other things I just try to consistently do, and it does shift over time. And just being open to the shift, just being open to like living your life as full as you can. So speaking of which, I just want to wrap it up and say, you know, has this been a part of your dreams, and what do you see in store for 2022?
I think Katie wants me to take the lead on that. She's giving me a look.
You always know.
What's Melissa gonna say? Oh man. Yes. So 2022, what's the vision? Really, where is this going? For us, podcasting is really the on-ramp. Podcasting is really the connection tool that we are using to build our businesses in many different capacities. Katie and I have several businesses together, and we are doing a lot of different things right now in the realms of coaching, in the realms of network marketing, in the realm of podcasting, hosting, and working with outside clients. We see this going in many different directions, and the possibilities are infinite. So yeah, that's, as far as production, that's a discussion that we've been having a lot lately. Obviously, as you've all heard, we are the co-producers of Felicia's show, Fifi Uncensored. And we have really taken this opportunity to learn what we love about podcasting, what we love about coaching, and what we love about producing, as an additional source to our own show. Because when you're doing your own, it's like, it's a little different. It's a little bit different than really putting your work out there for somebody else and putting your expertise to use in a new way. And, you know, we have these aspirations that are really big to build a production company and work with corporations that are maybe looking to develop new marketing in different ways and be developing podcasts on that high level scale. And for us, it's really a journey of building a team at this stage and working on, you know, what we want to continue to do that goes into developing a podcast, such as the editing, the recording, the planning, the recruiting of guests, all of the things, plus many more. and what we want to outsource. So yeah, I mean, that's the stage we're at right now. And we're excited to just continue on this journey and see exactly what this path develops into. But production's really cool. It's a lot of fun, and it's really cool to listen to episodes from your clients every single week and be like, wow, these are the conversations that are out there. Like, how do we get this out to the world in a bigger way? How do we make sure this is heard by all ears that need to hear it? And how do we get it to the communities that are really needing it the most? And just being able to collaborate in this high vibe forum has just been so nice. So we want that. We want to continue that. And as far as our podcast, that's obviously continuing to, as I said, at the top of this part of the conversation, you know, that's really the on-ramp to all the rest of these things for us, as far as connecting, as far as showcasing our skills and our thoughts and our talents and our expertise. We use our podcast to do that. And we also use it as a platform for advertising all of the work that we are doing outside of podcasting. So yeah, it's been a really great tool for us to use in getting an opportunity to allow people to know us better.
Yeah. And also, one of the things that we've been consistent, both Melissa and I, in our own individual lives and careers along the way, as well as our ventures together, is that we have this tendency to like learn something, do it ourselves, and then we want to teach other people how to do it. So that's where like the coaching side comes in for us always, because it's like, our kind of trend of the way things go for us is we started podcasting, and then we were like, well, let's teach other people how to do it. And then like we started producing, and then we're like, well, let's teach other people how to do it. So I think that that's going to be a continuing thing that we kind of go back to all the time, is helping people who want to do the same thing as us along the way as we learn new things as well. So I think that's something that's going to stick with us for the long haul, not just 2022, but moving forward. It's something we've identified in ourselves that we love to do, is kind of reaching back and helping other people behind us. Same with our network marketing. That's exactly what we do there. So yeah, I think that's something that's definitely going to continue for us. And a big aspiration for us is to, not only propel ourselves, but to take people with us.
Well, I think that that's what's so wonderful about being aligned with the two of you, is that there is so much symbiotic course of action. There's so much symbiotic interest. I, like yourselves, having the multiple, multi-level businesses, as well as multiple careers, and the desire to span out in many directions, and using this as a platform. And I'm more in the infantry stage of, where I'm at in comparison to what you guys have under your belt, but knowing going forward, utilizing this platform and helping it grow and seed all the other things that I've been desirous of and laying the foundation for. And also, in tune with what you guys are talking about, how I hope that as this platform does grow, and as we all grow, that we continue to grow together, and that we get to take this into a much bigger platform than we even, I've said some pretty lofty things that I don't even need to say right now in this podcast, because sometimes, it's not about keeping a secret is a powerful thing, but there's a science of the mind mentality about that. There's certain things you don't need to tell all things, but I mean that in the best of ways. It's kind of like I just created a Hitchcock moment in a movie. Like, you don't have to see it all to imagine what's possible. I will say this, as a little girl, long before I moved to LA, I always imagined that I would have a helicopter pad. And I did imagine that I would live in Malibu and my helicopter would get me from place to place. The irony is I study with a lot of people who just naturally do this now. And it's not a big deal. Am I there yet? No, I'm not there yet. Am I capable? Are we all capable? Absolutely. I'm not making a dime on this project as of right now. I'm investing in myself right now. I think investing in oneself is, if I can leave everybody today with what's important, about investing in self in order to grow, in order to receive, is key. And I think this is a perfect example. In order to get exchange, you got to give in order to get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So for those who want, need to give in order to get. And that is a huge, huge lesson, I think, for many people to take away from this, is that this didn't come because it was handed to any of us. We keep showing up and keep making it happen. And we keep figuring out the process. But nobody's telling us you got to show up at a certain time and do something. We're choosing to do that. And we're choosing to continuously create this body of work, and how it allows our tree to spread its wings, grow its branches, fruit its fruit, and don't have to know how big it's going to get. Just know it's going to get big because we choose it to. And I'm just really grateful that I get to spend this time with you, and that our listeners have gotten to spend time hearing what's possible for them, if it's something that's of interest to them, to go out on this limb and do something that they've been seeking to do, and know that it's possible, and know that there's a community of people out there that it's possible to connect with, and know that everybody's voice does matter, and that everybody does have something to share that will resonate with somebody else, and that this is of interest to you, then to seek out and to message us and let us know, so we can lead you in the right direction, so we can help you become, that realization for yourself. But I just want to thank you, Melissa and Katie, for just being in my life, for helping my last part of 2021 just into a whole nother place that, like I said, whether people are listening or not, it's just the fact that I get to engage with people and create, and I actually get to turn around and say, I actually did this. And you shared with me that most people don't get past 7 podcasts. Like, they drop it from there on. And the fact that by the end of these, 3.5 months before it becomes 2022, that you'll be listening to this, that I will have actually created 14 episodes with your thanks to you two, and that we'll be able to rerun those. That's part of my plan in 2022. We'll be able to rerun those on a different day besides the actual days that we're launching all the new ones, and start to build this body of work in this community around the campfire. And I just want to thank you so much. I love you two so much. And I don't think of you as daughters, I think of you as soulmates. And yes, we do have many soulmates in our life. Whether you want to talk about the stars and the moon and the planets, we all have a lot of soulmates in our life, and they come in all different shapes and sizes and for different reasons. And I'm just grateful that you two have aligned as my soulmates, and I'm very, very thankful. So thank you so much for being a part of this podcast.
You're so welcome. I love being here. I love it. I love listening to your show and just being part of the development of all of this. It's really one of my proudest projects. I'm like, I love this show. I love it all. Love the conversations. And I love that I get to be a part of it every week. It's a lot of fun. And I hope that you all stay tuned for everything that's to come in 2022 for Camp Fifi Uncensored. There's a lot of good things coming your way. So definitely, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and review Felicia's show, because she's got some great content, guys, and you need to help her out for sure.
Look at Melissa plugging for you. What a host she is. It's been truly a pleasure to work with you, Felicia, and thank you so much for having us on your show. It's been such a fun time, and it's been a while since we've been able to just get on a call and talk to one another and just have a really good conversation. So it was so much fun.
As you had the opportunity to hear my conversation with Katie and Melissa on season 2, episode 1, Camp Fifi Uncensored, co-creating communication, collaboration, manifestation, creating that abundant, fluid opportunity of gathering together is all the things to look forward to in 2022. Sharing ourselves with one another and raising each other up and aligning with like-minded positive people is everything that this world is craving and is possible. And my joy of creating this podcast of the Fifi Uncensored Conversations is because I believe that gathering each other together and purely sharing your heart and stories allows others to hear and resonate with one another and make each other better. The joy of my gathering together with Katie and Melissa is a perfect example of that. Us sharing our dreams, us sharing what we believe in and what we want to achieve, and how we have so much to look forward to. I hope our conversation inspires you to set forth all those things that you look forward to doing, because manifesting your dreams is possible. Take it little at a time. Don't get overwhelmed, but set forth, create those vision boards, create those things into reality that you've always wanted to do. Don't hold back. Release all your joy into the world so you can have all that joy come back to you. And I look forward to connecting with you as a community, as co-creators, as what is possible. I look forward to inspiring you by you helping be a part of this community and hearing other people's life stories and hopefully hearing yours as time goes on. I look forward to 2022 together with you around this campfire where the spirit is young, the souls are wise, and the stories are endless. I look forward to sharing anything and everything from soup to nuts, or what I like to say, from cannolis to egg in the holes, and don't forget the s'mores. I look forward to us having an amazing 2022 together here at Camp Fifi Uncensored. Much love, much love, much love. Cheers for now.